Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a crazy neighbor trespassed on my mountain property and essentially annexed my cabin. He then rented out my property on Airbnb and ended up trashing the entire place after getting called out. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. For a while I thought that the world was a wonderful place, that you could do anything and that people would generally care. Well, it turns out that I was wrong. After a huge mishap and debacle that left me in chains, so to speak, I finally turned and realized that you better check yourself before you let naivety get in the way. This all happened one summer when I recently bought a new mountain cabin in Peru. Everything was going fine and dandy until I get this call one day, but before I jump right in, let me back up. For the longest time I was frustrated with my way of life over in the United States. I had dreamed of living in a rural mountain town somewhere in the States, but the prices just did not seem to work out for me. Given the fact that my job was remote, I could travel anywhere and get by with living expenses. I visited South America on a sabbatical one year and absolutely loved it. The people were nice, the environment was clean, and the best yet, there was a mountain cabin up for sale near the town that I often frequented while on my sabbatical. Fast forward to today, and I almost wished I had waited to scope the area out beforehand, because it's not every day that you run into a bunch of shady people that might want to do harm to you at your expense. Let me just say, I generally care about most people and hold no regard over where you come from. But if I could go back in time before all this began, I assure you that I would think twice before ever buying this cabin in the woods. The cabin was everything I ever wanted. It was the people in the area that wanted it even more, it turns out. Don't get me wrong, the local Peruvians were amazing, but this one character just did me in the wrong way. And as you will see, he got what was coming to him. I guess karma really is a thing. Like I said, the cabin was everything I wanted. New flooring, a hot tub on the patio, views of the mountains, and best of all, a bridge that connected the driveway to a secluded drive with a creek running under it. A perfect mountain getaway like something out of a fantasy movie. I guess one of the locals took a liking to it though. And even though I had admired this cabin for so long and had grown fond of it, I was not prepared to lose it and deal with shady criminals who would stop at nothing to take away my dream. I'd bought the cabin with some crypto money I'd earned and cashed out on this property. I furnished it, took care of it, and generally made it an awesome place to live. I guess one of the locals had heard of everything I was doing to soup this place up. When I got a phone call from a client saying that I need to fly out to China to do some work, I ended up leaving for a little over a month. I work in finance and often travel globally. One of the locals ended up annexing the property and listing it on Airbnb. What the hell? This guy even claimed that I was dead and that the property deeds were all in his name by forging them, that there was no verifiable owner who could make the claim to the property. This all happened so quickly, it was hard for me to wrap my head around. What the hell? It turns out that there was some shady stuff going on in this town. The man who forged the documents ended up working for some corrupt officials in the courthouse in the town. They even went as far as planning to redevelop the land and turn it into some sort of Airbnb getaway full of alpaca riding experiences. What the hell? I was shocked and just plain angry at all of this. So when I get back, it all went down like this. I end up pulling up to my driveway and I find a sign that says, "No trespassing, violators will be prosecuted." It was written in Spanish, so I had to whip out my translator on my phone. I go and pull the sign out of the ground and toss it down. The next minute, I see a bunch of vehicles pull up alongside the road not too far from where I was parked. Two men get out of each car. The last car pulls up next to mine, and it's a woman and her kids. And then this big burly dude gets out wearing jeans and an Abercrombie polo. He looks like a total idiot, and I just stare at him, wondering what the hell is going on. He then approaches me and starts yelling in Spanish. I get my translator out and he's cursing at me a mile a minute, saying, "What the hell do you think you're doing? You're on my property, friend." I was thinking to myself that this guy is a total moron for coming up to me on my own property, calling me friend. F no, I'm not your friend, dude. He then proceeds to walk around me, trying to intimidate me, and then his wife or girlfriend or whatever gets back in the car because their baby starts to cry. He then gets a little more irritated and I tell him, "This is my house, dude. What the hell are you doing on my property?" This is all done on my iPhone using Translate, by the way, with speakerphone. He looks back at his homies and laughs and then pulls something out of his pocket. It's a copy of the deed to the property. He then goes on to say, "Well, homie, this is my property now. And now get the F out. Who are you anyway? The owner died years ago." I start laughing and getting angry at the same time. He then gets back in his car and picks up his phone. "I'm gonna call the cops on you if you don't leave, gringo," he yelled. The next thing I know is that I see a couple of people come outside the cabin. I walk quickly towards them and start yelling, "Get off my property, what in the hell do you think you're doing?" Good thing that they spoke English, because I don't think they would have understood a damn thing if not. The group of people got out of the cabin and said, "This is our Airbnb, we are staying here for the week." What the hell? I started to get furious. After yelling at them, "Get off my damn property!" they all left and got in their cars all scared and wondering what the hell is going on. It turns out it was not the cops he was calling, but it was some guests that got a call from him saying there was someone on the property that did not belong. The guests end up leaving and he waves them on and tells them on the phone to go to the nearest town and he will take care of it. I guess he thought I was a crazy madman who did not belong here, but I had a feeling that the people who he pulled up with him were in on his little scheme. After going back and forth, I ended up calling the police myself and tried to wait it out. There was no way I was gonna leave my own property after all this went down. So I cannot get a hold of the police, go figure. After constantly calling them, I drive myself into town, hoping to get someone to remove these a-holes off my property. Once I get into town, I talk with one of the chief inspectors. He was very gracious and kind. I told him, "Why don't you guys pick up the phone? I'm nearly out here alone with these jerks who claim to steal my property and hold the deed. I have not sold anything, they are the ones trespassing." The inspector looked at me in bewilderment. "I'm sorry for your mishap, sir. We need to make sure they don't come back. And do you have any evidence with you?" I grunted and nodded my head. "Yeah, the evidence is that they are right there right now." And then I thought to myself, I need to make sure that my CCTV surveillance is turned on. I usually keep it on when I'm gone for extended travel, but this time I could not remember if I had left it running or not. The inspector looked at me surprised. "Okay, well, we need to make sure we go up there. I will bring an officer with you to hold the peace. Do you have anyone else in the town that could be a witness or aid in your case?" I started to get frazzled. "Well, no, but I may have my CCTV turned on that might have recorded some stuff." So I go up there with an officer in his patrol car. It takes a long time going up the mountain because it's basically a one-lane road and very rocky. We finally get there and I find the most bizarre thing ever. These idiots are chopping down trees and worst of all, the bridge leading up to the cabin is completely destroyed. They nuked that thing to pieces. What the hell? We get out of the car and as soon as they spot us, the idiots who claim to own the property have their cars all parked up the road further away from the bridge. And Disney is pooping in the background, so sorry for the noise. Anyway, they start running through the creek and making a mad dash for the hills. The next thing I know is that the officer is pointing a gun right at them and planning on shooting their sorry asses. He did not pull the trigger but got in his car and started chasing after them down the mountain. I go back inside the cabin and find that it's completely trashed. After a short period of time and the officer now gone, I go to my closet to find the CCTV downloads that had been running. As I watched each video play, I finally got to the one that showed these guys breaking into my cabin and searching it while I was gone. And then I fast forwarded to the part where they chopped down trees and destroyed my bridge. After putting it on a hard drive, I raced back down the mountain and handed the evidence back to the chief inspector. He examined it with me and I pressed charges on them. That very day, the officer ended up catching one of the criminals and he admitted to all the wrongdoings. The other ones involved were eventually found and brought to justice. After a lengthy battle of getting my deed back and getting all my documents back in order, I think it's fair to say that the peaceful dream of living up in the mountain proved to be a big headache after all. Maybe next time I will just go live on a boat or something. And yeah, certainly ripe stars, even in a secluded mountain cabin, sometimes you might be confronted with entitled people even there. Anyway, the next one is a malicious compliance story. Little bit of backstory. I worked at the time in an oil change place. They had recently moved managers from salary to hourly because some managers in different cities were just lying and not going to work while getting the same check every payday. And I warned them that if anything, my pay was gonna go way up because I'm here a lot more than 40 hours a week. They were good with that, they said. Well, one night I get a call at 7 p.m, 2 hours after closing, from one of my guys who was in the shop after hours without permission and crashed into a bay door, like a garage door. All auto shops have at least a few of them. He got fired, but that's not the MC at all, just a setup. So I came in and investigated. The most relevant fact here was that he bent the door, so there was maybe a 4" by 4" gap. A house cat could have squeezed through. I called our door repair guys immediately, and they said their folks were on an emergency after hours call already to somewhere 5 hours away, and they could be there in the morning. I said okay, since this was not a danger. The door was in a place not visible from the street. You would have to be behind our building looking for this kind of thing to find it. Alarm still set, motion detectors still work. Anyone that broke in through this metal door with a 4" gap would have needed tools and was gonna get in even without the gap. We don't even keep more than $100 cash around, and anything expensive to steal was equipment bolted to the floor. Deal with it tomorrow, right? Obviously, no. So I called my boss to fill him in, and he said to call the door guys. I told him I did already and tried to explain their situation. He interrupted and told me in a super rude and loud words this dickhead didn't like being called after work or having to do any work ever, just to call them and not bother him again about it. Then texted me to rudely say that I better be damned well stay there until they arrive and finish the repair. So since I was single, I had no plans and was now paid hourly. I clocked in the instant I arrived initially. I decided this sounded like easy money. I pulled up 2 comfy office chairs to make a bed/couch, watched YouTube and did assorted internet scrolling. Slept at normal times pretty comfortably all the way to 8 a.m. They showed up around 9 and fixed the problem pretty quickly. I was already on my regular scheduled 8 to 5 shift that day, which I finished, so now let's do the math. That overnight waiting, 7 p.m. to 8 a.m, 13 hours all overtime at time and a half, and then my normal shift 9 hours all at time and a half. So 22 hours multiplied by 1.5 means 33 hours of pay for doing my normal shift plus internet scrolling and napping that was barely even an inconvenience. My boss sees it come payday and tries to give me a yelling over email for trying to rip off the company, CCing all the big bosses, HR, payroll, etc. I reply to all, explain the situation, include the text screenshot as well. Suddenly, I'm not the one getting yelled at anymore, and I got every bit of that overtime pay. And now we have a petty revenge story next. So in this story I was young, maybe 15 years old or so, and would pick up the odd babysitting gig for extra money. I took a night for a household that was on my paper route. They asked me to be there on a Saturday for 8:30 and I arrived a few minutes early. The parents were still getting ready and they asked me to watch the kids while they prepared to head out. They left the house at about 9:15 and before they headed out the wife gave me some very specific instructions. I could have a snack, 2 Oreos on the counter. Nothing else. She said she poured a glass of milk for me and left it in the fridge. It was right next to the plastic milk jug with a piece of tape on it showing the level. She told me she would check it when she got back and if I took any extra milk I would have to answer for it. The kids were okay, went to bed without a fuss and the parents returned home at 12:20. Mommy paid me for 3 hours about 10 minutes after they arrived. And I said, excuse me, but this is not right. I got here before 8:30 and it's now almost 12:30. That's 4 hours, not 3. We did not leave until 9:15 and we got home at 12:15. I'm only paying you for 3 hours. But I was watching the kids from 8:30. That doesn't matter. We were home and you were not in charge. We were. I took the money and rode my bike home. A couple of weeks later they did pretty much the same thing. 2 things are important though. First, the wife was a neat freak. I'm guessing now she had OCD, everything was lined up perfectly, one of the kids spilled his drink and I was looking for some paper towels. The cleaning supplies under the sink were perfectly lined up, same with the pantry, every jar and can was in a row with the label facing directly to the front. Second, this was in the mid-1970s and all canned food had paper labels. So the 3rd time they called me in to babysit, they were late leaving again and I knew that I was gonna get short-charged for the time I was there. I was steaming, so I went into the pantry and tore the labels off each and every can, all of them. She had a shelf for Campbell's soup, another one for canned veggies, another one for canned fruits and I scrambled the unlabeled cans. When they got home, sure enough, the wifey tried to short me again. You know what? Keep your money. I don't want it, and I'm never babysitting for you again. And as of today, I'm stopping delivering your newspapers as well. So if you want to read the paper, you're going to have to buy it at the corner store. I stormed out. I wish I could have seen the expression on her face when she opened the pantry door and saw shelf after shelf of bare metal cans. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that was absolutely deliciously petty, and that is what petty revenge is all about in my opinion. I just love these stories. Let me know in the comments what you think about petty revenge stories compared to others like nuclear or pro-revenge. Next one is titled, Neighbor attacks my pregnant wife with a shovel for not removing snow from our driveway. Me and my wife live in a small apartment, so when she got pregnant we took that as our push to move to a bigger place. We had been saving for a house and we managed to find one for a decent price and it looked good. At a glance, you might wonder why somebody would want to leave a beautiful affordable house in a nice neighborhood. I don't know the actual answer for why the previous owners moved, but I would not be shocked if it was because of the guy living next door. So this neighbor was somebody I would call a Karen, but he was a guy, so for this story I'm gonna call him Kevin. By the time we got settled into the home, it was the fall and right away he started having small annoying issues with us. The first introduction to the guy was when we were still moving in boxes and unpacking. In fact, instead of a nice welcome to the neighborhood introduction, we got told to rake our leaves because it could make our grass die and look bad. Very weird to me, but it only got worse from that moment on. Everything that we did seemed to upset Kevin, and there was no actual way to please the guy. He would constantly comment that the house paint was chipped even though I could not see anything on it. He would tell me to wash my car and that he would start reporting me if I didn't keep things up to code. Again, this was a guy I never really had a conversation with and just would hear him complaining about things and threatening to report us. Those small things are not why I am writing this story though. Once winter hit, he crossed the line, and that's the story I'm here today to write about. Pretty early in the winter season, we ended up getting a decent amount of snow for the area we live in. A foot is not unheard of, but not super common in early December. It was not the soft fluffy snow either, because it was below freezing, so the next morning it was heavy icy snow. It was really bad timing because I had the flu and was stuck in bed not able to do much of anything. I felt really bad because I wanted my wife to be resting because she was 8 months pregnant and should not have had to be making me soup or dealing with the snow. I told her to forget about the driveway, but she said that she might be able to do a little bit and just wanted to see. In theory, it's best to get rid of the snow in the driveway right away because you don't want it melting during the day and then freezing at night. That just creates more dangerous ice to slip on. My wife lasted only about 5 minutes outside before coming in and telling me that there was no way she could clear any of that driveway. I was too sick to even tell her that I told her so. I probably would not have anyway because you never want to piss off your very pregnant wife. The doorbell rang and my wife went to go and answer it to see what was going on. I told her that if it was people going door to door for shoveling, to just pay them to do it. Instead though, it was Kevin, and my wife went outside to talk to him because we didn't want him in our house or even able to sneak in through the door. We really didn't trust the guy. While outside, he told my wife that she better clear the snow out of our driveway or he will make sure our car never gets to move again. Then he took his shovel and swung it right at my wife. My wife ran, well, hobbled as fast as she could into safety of the house and locked the door. She told me the whole story, and despite being sick, I called the police and told them that our neighbor tried to attack my 8-month pregnant wife with a shovel. They came, but since there were no witnesses and she said he did it and he said he didn't, there was not anything they could do. We don't have cameras or anything, so there was no proof and we could only stay in the house that day. The next day around noon, my brother called and said that he had a snowblower and could do our driveway for us. We were happy because the last thing we wanted was for my wife to go to the hospital and the car be buried under snow. He did the job but told my wife to come outside and see something. On the car, all 4 tires had been clearly slashed with a knife. I got no doubt in my mind that Kevin did that in the middle of the night to make good on his threat. I was starting to feel better, and once I was at 100% a couple days later, I decided that I needed to get some revenge on this guy. I never really did anything like this before. I did not even pull pranks as a kid, so I was out of my depth. I decided to put my phone's microphone feature on and tried to catch him confessing. I went over and knocked on his door ready to put my plan into action. "Kevin, what the hell do you want?" "Well, I came to talk to you about what happened with you and my wife the other day. Kevin, that witch of yours was outside for 2 seconds before giving up." I've seen fat guys twice her size shovel in the winter with no problem. Me, first of all, she's not a witch, and second of all, she's not fat, she's pregnant. Moving around is hard for her and could hurt the baby if she lifts the snow. Kevin, she moved fast enough when I was done with her. Me, you mean you swung a shovel at my wife? Do you even know how dangerous that is? Kevin, keep your panties on, I was not gonna hit her in the stomach. Just to the head to maybe knock some sense into her, haha. Me, you slashed my tires, right? Are you planning on paying me back for that? Kevin, that was a warning. Now you know better than to mess with me or to call the cops on me. You'd just be glad that it was the tires and I didn't destroy your brakes. I then had enough and left at that point, thrilled how well it turned out. I went to the police and showed them the confession that I got from him. I told them we were scared of him doing something dangerous like he threatened about my brakes and trying to hurt us. It was apparently enough evidence for the police because they went to his house and arrested him right there. The entire time he was cursing me out and telling me that I was the worst neighbor in the world, that he was just trying to keep order and I wanted to turn it all into chaos. Sure, Kevin, whatever you say. This revenge was also perfect because it meant that Kevin had to spend the holidays in jail instead of with his family. Hopefully Santa could still deliver his huge piece of coal to his prison cell. I can put up with plenty, but trying to attack my pregnant wife was way too far for me. I don't regret tricking him into confessing and ruining his holiday. A few weeks later, my wife gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.